Hello and welcome to the Vlogging Pod. Tonight we are joined by Helen Gretchen Jones. Welcome to the room, Helen. How are you this evening?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Now, Helen, you're the author of Healing Whispers from Spirit Guide. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. I wrote the book because I was inspired to really talk about how death has, first of all, I guess I should say I'm a death doula. And I wanted to write the book to really normalize conversations around death and to help people understand the spiritual things that are happening bedside for a lot of these patients. So I talk about things that I have learned from connecting with spirit and things that I have learned bedside with a lot of my patients. And then I follow it up with a chapter of a journey of some really beautiful spiritual experiences of some of my favorite patients. And that's sort of what the flow of the book is.
Mm. Now, how does one reach you for as a death doula? Do you have, how does one ask for that, for to be by their bedside?
So a death doula is,
Doula. Sorry, my
yeah,
pronunciation.
so a death doula is something that's a relatively new um, profession, I guess. But I would say that it's been done forever, just like birthing doulas or how we can assist and help other people. People have always been doing that forever. But having someone come in and actually sit with a dying patient is relatively new with our changing healthcare systems because nurses used to be
Mm.
able to do that. And now they have so much more paperwork that they are required to fill out. There's a need for a person to come in and sit with families and sit with patients as someone is transitioning. This is it is a I think really, really important because it gives people an opportunity to seek closure, to find peace, and to help them alleviate fears that sometimes families and patients themselves don't have the resources or understanding for.
Hmm. Now, I'll be honest with you. Your book and insight touched me greatly. As one who has lost her father last year and just a few months ago lost my sister. So, my interest has really been, you know what I mean? It's been drawn forward, especially where it comes to where you said, growth and connection, from, you know what I mean, from after death is preside from the family living on. So how does one get to the growth and connection part of that from after grieving?
It's a practice, really, just like if you're learning an instrument or learning how to paint or anything that you do, it's a practice. So if you are really wanting to connect to your loved ones after they have passed on, which is like my dad, for example, not a great
Mhm.
communicator in life, but after he
Mm.
transitioned, he became a much better communicator. And
Mhm.
our connection and our relationship actually continued and even strengthened after he transitioned in 2015.
Wow, really?
Absolutely. And so the deal though is to really make an effort. One way
Mm.
that I suggest anyone who's interested in doing that is to sit quietly and find a few moments of peace in your day with the intention of connecting to one of your loved ones. Don't have the expectation that it's going to happen. Don't set an outcome that you feel that if you don't meet, you're going to be disappointed in. It's not really about that. It's about opening your heart, feeling that connection to that person, and allowing whatever messages or information or love to sort of flow through. I would also suggest writing all of your experiences down because you will
Mm.
forget. And it's so easy to dismiss our experiences. We can tend to overthink and say, you know what, I imagined that. But if you write it
Mm.
down, you start to strengthen your ability to discern messages from spirit and your own imagination. But quite frankly, your own imagination is how we connect to spirit. So that's what I would
Yes.
suggest. People start that practice of turning inward.
I've been told a few times. I had a family member who who swore her connection to such things, spiritually, who's more sensitive to those. And she felt that he was around me all the time, but I must not be very sensitive to such things, or maybe open-minded enough. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would welcome it if it came to me. But I never see it. And I had a medium on last year, and of course there was one thing she told me that was exactly like my dad would have said it, and that like freaked me out. And so yeah, I was like, "Wow!" But on the day to day, I mean, I just never notice the simplicity of things that other people do. I'm very, you know what I mean? I'm very blunt and blatant, you know what I mean, in my verbiage. I'm just like right out there. So for me, the subtleties, I think I miss greatly. If is there a trick to how you tune yourself to those subtleties?
So what I like to do is if I take time a little bit each day, like I mentioned earlier about sitting in the silence, but throughout my day,
Hmm.
I initially, because it is a practice again, and you have to kind of get in the habit, I would set random alarms on my phone. And they would put it like at 5:03 p.m. and, on Tuesday. And I would do it all these different dates and times. And it was
Hmm.
in that moment when that would go off because it would be unpredictable and everything is set up at different times, on the alarms that it would have me stop and really focus on where I am in the present moment, because I have a tendency to think, okay, I need to run, go get my daughter from school. Okay, do I have all the ingredients for
Hmm.
dinner? And we all do that. I'm on my way driving. I need to look at the road and where I'm going. But really, if wherever I'm at when that alarm goes off, I just take a minute and I really focus on what are my thoughts? Are my thoughts positive? Are they negative? Are they in the future? Are they in the past? Or are they in the present moment, which is where I need to be? And then I pull my thoughts wherever they are, because they're always scattered, into the present moment. And then I think of 5 things that I am grateful for in that moment. And that brings me to being able to perceive the very subtle things around me, to being very open and aware of what is happening in my present moment, and to find gratitude in that moment. And that really helps open me up to anything else that wants to come through.
It's hard, especially in today's in today's chaos, and I won't go into my thinking on that, but you probably have your own idea to that, to the whole world, the way things are going lately. So it's hard to find that bit of peace. Do you do meditation to get yourself into that channeling process?
So I do meditation, yes, but meditation is, I have found when I'm working with other people, that it's a really loaded word for many. Everyone's like, "Oh, I can't
Mm,
do meditation," and they immediately dismiss it, which is why I change it to a moment of silence. To sit there quietly. There's no, you don't, people think that with meditation, you have to clear your mind of all thoughts. Well, that's not
mhm,
possible. We're humans and our brain is a filter, filtering constantly information in and out of our awareness. So you're never going to be just not thinking of anything or doing anything. It's really about where you want to put your intentions, where you want to put your focus. And yes, the world is crazy right now, but I can't think of a time in our history of choice, because I feel like we choose our history
yes. I
where
get
it
you, I
isn't.
get you. I get you, and I'm glad that we're on the same wavelength. I like you. It is so bad that we have to talk in riddles nowadays, because it's just but I agree with you. It's how we put ourselves. We have to be aware of how to react to such things. I get you.
Yes,
And
yes.
when you talk about meditation, I've tried it. I've got an app on my phone, and it talks about the breathing, and I find myself then I start to thinking about the breathing. I'm like, "Am I breathing this right?" And I'm like, "What's that catch in my lung?" So,
I know.
yes.
It's so
Yeah,
hard.
so and then I overthink it, and then I lose whatever the meditation was trying to give me, my peace, probably more like my peace of mind, but yeah. Um, so there's a reference in your book, I believe it's called The Science Club. Can you elaborate on this for me?
Okay. I almost didn't put them in the science club, but it's my husband's
Mm,
favorite part. He thought they needed to go in. And then I've had so many emails about the science club. So I'm glad that they were included.
mm,
But I was doing a meditation and I was going to tune into my team, who I call A team.
mhm,
And I was asking them for clarity on time, in the illusion of time and things like that. I was going in with some questions and I was expecting to get answers from A team, but instead this gentleman appeared in my closet. I was meditating in my closet. It's the quietest place in the house. And so I'm sitting there, and this gentleman appears in my closet and he's in black and white, which is symbolically how spirit comes in whenever they're showing me a time frame between 1920 and 1969, respectively. It's, I think, because of black and white photography. But I didn't know who he was. He gave me all this information. He merged into a collective of other scientists. And he had interesting things to say, and I wrote it all down. And then he disappeared or faded away.
Mm.
And I went and looked him up because he didn't give me a name, but he gave me all these clues to who he was. And I knew he was British and I saw him as clear as day. And when I looked him up, his name is actually Paul Dirac. And I had never heard of him, but he's won a Nobel Prize. He's kind of a big deal in the physics community. I majored in art and, theology. So this was way out of my wheelhouse, but it was a validating experience for me to be able to find him quite easily on the internet. And since then, I have had several other, I call them scientists because some are biologists, most of them are physicists, but they're from different branches of science and they're deceased, and they come through with information that they suggest that I look into to better understand some of the questions that I'm asking. So I just group them all into a collective and call them Science Club. And so sometimes we have these Science Club meetings where I get to join in and sit there and basically observe and take notes is really all I'm doing.
Mhm.
But I definitely feel like a guest of honor during these Science Club meetings. But it's really, really interesting and it's fascinating. And I work with them sporadically. They're not one of my regular groups that come through.
Oh. Now, you mentioned that you have the study of art. I'm sorry, I take notes as we talk. I love to, if you say something interesting, I will write it down and I'll usually ask a question on it. And you say theology, which for anyone who's asking or anything, is the study of religion, God, and the human experience of faith. How does that input into when you are doing, I want to make sure I get the pronunciation, doula? I'm horrible at pronunciation. I don't know if you recognize that, but I'll point it out every time.
Okay.
So, how does that inspire that? Do you find that you lean on it, or does it add to the experience for you?
I don't lean on it at all. I think that
Okay.
I majored in art and theology in college because I was looking for answers. I was having spiritual
Mm,
experiences since I was a child, and I thought the answers have to be out there. But the more, I learned, the more questions I had. And,
yes.
I just was, it's just crazy, right? You don't ever get to a solid answer. But really, the only thing we can trust are our own personal experiences and how that shapes our awareness of ourselves. But
Yes.
I find that my knowledge in world religions is very, very helpful because I have had patients of so many different religions that I've had
Oh,
to
yeah.
navigate at end of life with them. I have one woman, she was a Catholic nun, Sister Bernadette, and she was really, really upset because Sister Mary Catherine had been visiting her. Well, to my surprise, Sister Mary Catherine had already, in her words, gone to our, fatherly, our heavenly father. So, and
Mhm.
I'm just like, oh, that's great. In my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that means your time is close. You're seeing deceased loved ones. But this was distressing to her because it went against her Catholic faith. She did not want to
Mm.
commune with the dead. And I said, oh, well, you commune with the dead all the time. You talk to, God and Jesus and Mother Mary. And she said, no, I don't commune with them. I pray to them. And this was a very
Ah.
distinct difference for her faith as she was transitioning. So I took my understanding of the Catholic faith and I said, I remember a story in the Bible where Mother Mary was visited by Archangel Gabriel and she was told she was going to have Jesus. I said, maybe that's who Sister Mary Catherine is. Maybe she's a messenger from God, a visitor, a vision just for you. And being able to shift that perspective for her was enough to make her feel more peaceful and more at ease with this visitor. So I think understanding a little bit about people's faith gives me the opportunity to shift their awareness and perspective around distressing events that could be happening that might contradict what they believe to be faith-based teachings. and
Hmm.
maybe shift it just a little bit so that they can find peace in those final moments.
I like that. I really do. I think that whole, just your whole phrasing and meaning of what you've just said makes me pull into more of what you're trying to tell me, if that makes any sense. I know that's roundabout. I'm like, I'll just say this. It makes me more of a believer. It really does. Because that's very insightful, for you to sit down and having some basis of knowledge of their religions, I think would ease their path as well. So, I mean, since you are there for a reason for their end of life,
Yes.
and I think that would ease it a lot if I had someone who had understanding of my own faith. And, not that I pull one way or the other. I do believe in a lot of things, but I have so many questions. You know what I mean? I have so many as I've gotten older, I've had more questions. You know, when I was a kid, fully believed in everything, religion and everything that goes along with it. But as I've gotten older, and I think in my 50s now, that's where I'm at. Maybe it's menopausal, I don't know. But now I have so many questions, so many. So, let me gear this a little bit back. So when we talk healing whispers, I saw that you mentioned this in connecting with the dying process. Can you touch on the explanation of that for me?
So when I sit with a person who is dying, I could be there as, this person could be both unconscious, if it's maybe through NODA, for example, which is a No One Dies Alone program that is hospital based. I volunteer
Mm,
with them, and it's for people who are dying alone, who maybe never had children, or they're the last of their kind, or for whatever reason, no one is there with them, and they need volunteers to sit with these patients in 3-hour shifts. Usually, when a patient is activated through NODA, you're in the last 72 hours, so oftentimes they're unconscious. But when I work with hospice patients, I could be with them for months or even years. But either
mm.
way, I sit down with the intent to connect with them on a soul level. It is at that time that I usually receive information from my team in spirit, or even from the person transitioning, who is oftentimes outside of their body before their final breath. And so I take those messages, those beautiful healing whispers, and I use that wisdom to aid in the process of the person transitioning, or to help their families to find peace in that moment.
Ah, that's very interesting. I had someone else on my podcast. I don't know if this was last year or the year prior. Um, she had an experience. Her father had passed away as well, and she's part of a group, and they have a whole study on it. And I don't have a reference on it from the top of my head right now, but if you're interested, message me and I'll look it up for you.
Sure.
Um, I'll do it in the pod match. We can do it that way. But they have a group and they talk about the energies and brain waves. Well, I guess not really brain waves after, but wavelengths of the human spirit afterwards. And they've even done studies of it in the room.
Wow,
Um,
really?
I know. That's why I'm saying that you might be interested in seeing that. I have the website. I have to look it up. So it would take me a minute, but I'm sure I can find it for you if you were really interested. Um, because I keep all my notes.
I am actually very interested. Yes.
Okay, I keep all my notes. I have a file in here in my sound booth as well, so I will reference it and I'll pull it up for you and give it to you later. Um, but anyway, she was talking, and I found it very interesting, the study of that, and how you could, some people that are in tuned, and you might be as well, because of what you do, uh, feel feel the energy in the surroundings when it passes. And I'm just wondering, have you ever come to that where you just feel it from your being, or is it just, a sensation in your how you channel? Do you actually feel it outwardly, physically, when a passing happens?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, when I'm sitting with a patient who is transitioning, who's dying, and they're
Mhm,
taking their final breaths, and I'm present, um, I don't, this is one of my weaknesses. I would say I don't feel very well. But what
mm,
I do is I see, I'm very, very clairvoyant. And I've been working with my team in spirit to help me be more open to feeling these
mhm.
experiences. Instead, I see them, I witness them. And it is some of the most transformative unbelievable, quite frankly, experiences that I have ever witnessed. Whenever I've had shared death experiences with my patients. So, uh, if I witnessed them leaving. I have been in situations where the hospital room is transformed into another place, and I have gone with
Mm.
my patient a little ways into the spirit world. And I can tell you the colors there are so intense. Everything, it's like it glows from the inside out, like every blade of grass. It's like it has a light inside it somehow, and
Mm.
it's coming out of it. And every time I've gone, the skies have been blue.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's consistent, but it is the way I have perceived it. And it's every leaf has this life, every blade of grass, I mean, every tree. It is the most intense, beautiful, all encompassing love feeling as well. So my experiences, I guess that's a feeling of love, right? And oh, do
Mhm.
you know what the other
Yeah.
feeling is that I get? I do. I get a feeling of expansiveness. I feel bigger than my body. I feel bigger than the room I'm in. I feel massive. So I feel free and expansive and this really a truly unconditional love. Those are the only feelings I get. Everything else is very, very visual.
Mm. Now, Laura, and you've met her, our PA, I forgot to say, in the room, she says, I like that. She goes, I struggle with meditating, so I will try switching to a moment of peace. So she likes
Yes.
that.
Yes. I think
I
that's the key.
I find that very interesting. Just as a writer, I've written a few books, and I find that interesting. Have you ever thought? I mean, I know you've written a book based on of your channeling and the doula perception. But have you ever thought about wandering a little bit into the fiction side and elaborate even more so on the worlds that you touch base on, like when the soul is leaving the earth, like that? Well, like I mean, what you're saying.
I never have. I never thought I've never wanted to write a book. I have never had an interest in it. It was one of my members of my A team that came through 3 years ago in June and said, "You're going to write a book." And I thought to myself, like, I didn't feel qualified, honestly. Like, who would want to even, what am I? I'm a mom. Like, what am I even doing? That's where, I mean, really, it just, no. And they said, you will write a book. It will cover a lot of information and it will take you 2 years to complete. It took me 2.5 years. They were pretty darn close.
Mm,
And I put it out for that reason. But I am not a writer. I've never considered myself a writer. I guess I am now, but and when you said fiction, I thought, well, that's interesting because if I'm writing about the worlds that I'm experiencing, to me, it's not fiction. But I wonder
right.
if that's how our literary world would place that book because I would have no way of proving it, right? So I don't know what makes it
Yes.
fact or fiction.
Well, the thing about it is that, like, you could do a forward and you could say, this is based on experiences I have. And you could have it based on truth. You could do a lot of bit of it truth in, but then expand the stories from points of views from those. Or you could just keep it as a nonfiction and go further in with the families on those lives that you experience that where you've gotten glimpses of the other worlds that they went off to. I find that completely interesting. I would so read that. I mean,
Oh, that's awesome.
j- just the vivid imagery that you gave me on the energies you see within grass and the sky and what they're seeing through them. That's actually very interesting, very much so.
Well, and I would also add that I didn't say, but everything is like humming. Like there's a
Mm,
noise or a tone. It's not like a rhythm, like a drum keeping beat, but there's a melodic humming or tone coming from the trees and the grass and everything. I don't know. I can't really explain it, but it didn't seem like intrusive, like annoying. It was,
right.
or
It was
overly
more
loud.
welcoming,
It was
more welcoming.
just, it was
Yeah.
like a movement and a sound and a light that was all happening at one time from every single thing.
Just from letting my writer instinct go on here, I would think of it as like Mother Earth embracing me just from just from what the vivid expressions, like a warm hug from, you know what I mean, from the earth and all the elements from around. You know what I mean? Like going off and
Yeah.
just having that warm hug, and then even the humming you're saying, just kind of like that puts in mind of a warm breath on your neck where someone's just hugged you so tight, and you feel that sensation just roll through your body. Or
Maybe
maybe
you
I'm
want
just
to
ad
write
libbing.
about
Well, maybe that's for people think I'm in tune, but that's just the imagination of my brain working there.
Well, actually, the imagination is such an important part of being able to connect to spirit because people
Mm,
dismiss imagination as something that isn't real. But quite frankly, that's how spirit connects with us. We
yeah.
get to, as humans, one of the best parts about being human is we get to create and co create the world in which we live. And the only way to do that is by using our imaginations. So when we tune into something, and tune in is such a generic word, but when we create with an intention, when we use our imaginations to create something, spirit is like, yes, let's do this together. The universe, they're just like, okay, this is an intention that's being created right now. This is an imagination, a creation. And so the
Mm,
universe responds. So I don't think we should dismiss imagination at all when connecting to spirit. I think it's very, very important. So write down everything if anyone ever wants to try that. But it's
mm,
fantastic and it changes who you are from the inside out because it alleviates some of those fears
mhm.
and even misconceptions around judgments for other people, judging other people
Oh,
for judging other people. I mean, we can go
oh,
in
yeah.
circles around this. So, but we're human. It's part of what we do for our safety, right? We judge others out of our fears for our safety. But when we actually
Oh,
step
yeah.
back and just allow ourselves to be present in a moment and we can lift some of that fear around our environment, we have all this freedom to create something new and different, and spirit responds.
Mm. I like that phrasing, create with such intention. I actually wrote that down. I like that phrase. That is very I like that. I like that a lot. So what's next? I mean, what is your next big project? I mean, are you having more expansion into your channeling? Are you going to try another book along the same line? I know you said that you hadn't wanted to write the first one, but your spirits and your science club had told you that it was in your cards to do so. So, what do you see as the great big thing coming next for you?
So, I do have an interest in putting out more information around spiritual awareness and awareness of self, but I don't have the interest in doing a full blown book on my own. I think what I'm
Mm.
going to do instead is I've already started it actually with a few other people. Is I'm going to do a collaboration where I have everybody, maybe 30 different people write one chapter of their experiences.
Oh,
Perhaps it's around awakening, for example, and what that means from 30 different perspectives. Um, and if people are all going to write, 8 pages, well, that can be done relatively quickly. So something like that. So I'm planning on some collaboration books. A couple of those right now are in the works. And I have a good friend here in Austin, um, Keisha, and she's helping me actually to start moving into verbal channeling more. So when I
ah,
sit down with my team in spirit, I get the information and then I write it all down. When I've now, with a small group of women here in Austin, I've been able to sit and practice channeling twice verbally. And I am so nervous to do it. I don't know why. And I feel like I'm not fully letting go. So I think my big practice now with my friend, I start tomorrow actually, is
mm,
yeah, she's going to ask questions when I'm in my channeling state. And I will practice going deeper and letting go of my filters as a human so that the information can come through with a level of more wisdom without my misconceptions that my human wants to put in there. So that's actually what I'm working on now.
nice. Now, just as reference, I know they're talking about where TikTok may not be anymore, but have you dived into TikTok any bit?
No, I started a little
Okay.
TikTok thing and then they immediately took me down because I said death's too much.
Ah. Oh, yeah. You have, like I said, it's like walking on landmines right now as far as what you say and what you can do. But I will be probably taking segments from this, and it will be on TikTok as long as we have it until they take it away. But it'll also be other places too. I will tag you as much as I can when I see all your links and everything. So I'll do as much as I can for you on that.
Thanks.
But you're welcome. The reason I mentioned TikTok, if you get on there and you just browse, check out the 4 a.m. club, put that in your hashtag,
Okay.
um, and look it up. I have been following that and I have found it very interesting. It's just a moment in time of relative informational that's happened within the last weeks, and without diving any deeper into that. And it is something I found it very interesting that a lot of women, especially, have been in tuned enough where they had enough vibrations around 4 a.m. on a certain date and was woken up with that. And a lot of them have connected on TikTok with that. And it's
Oh,
been
how
very
interesting.
I know. So when you said you were doing the 30 collaboration of other people with similar, stories and experiences. Oh, Laura says, "Is there a ritual or cleansing you do after helping someone transition?" That's an interesting question.
I do actually. And I will say I'm not always consistent with it. Sometimes I get home and then I remember to do it. But I always feel, just so you know, I always feel protected. I always feel safe. I always feel, when I'm working with spirit, pretty fearless, actually. So it isn't like something where I immediately need to cleanse. Like but I do it. And what I do is I imagine, um, just sort of like a bubble, a golden bubble of light, and that's what I'll place myself in. But when I'm beforehand and then afterwards, there's a movie, and now I can't remember what it's called, and maybe it's Flashdance, but she's on a chair, she
Yes,
pulls this
yes,
lever, and the rain comes down. That's what I imagine. I
yes,
imagine
yes,
myself
flash.
pulling this, and golden rain washes down on me, cleansing me. So that's sort of my own little ritual. There's no right way or wrong way to do it, but I need something that's quick because I'm a busy person. I can't have this lengthy ritual.
Right. I fully understand that. I found this very enlightening. I want to thank you so much, Helen. You like prefer Gretchen or do you prefer Helen?
Helen's my first name, but I go by Gretchen.
Okay, Gretchen. Thank you so much, Gretchen, for being on. I've just been really absorbed in your conversation. I have to take a minute to phrase my words correctly. Very much. And if you ever want to be back on, please hit me up because I would be very interested to have you back on. It was a great interview.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Again, guys, I want to thank our listeners for coming in this evening. We have surpassed 3K. We're closer to 4K downloads now. And for the last few years, that just excites me to no end. So thank you guys very much. Until next time, bye bye for now.